Hey there. So I want to talk today about the upper limit problem. And this is a concept I first learned about from my teacher, Kathleen Hendricks, and her husband, Gay Hendricks, had written a great book about it called The Big Leap. And essentially, what the upper limit problem is that we all have this comfort zone around how much positive energy, how much success, joy, love we feel comfortable with experiencing. It's kind of like you can think about it like a glass ceiling. And once we start to expand beyond that, that glass ceiling kicks in and some part of us brings us back down to a more safe, manageable, and even familiar level or familiar vibration. So you can think about it like you just got your dream job. You know, they just called you up, they just announced it, you are so excited. Like this is everything you've been wanting and you're jumping for joy, and then within a minute or so, all of a sudden this negative self-talk starts. But who are you to do this? And you aren't qualified for this job, and everyone's going to find out that you're not actually good enough, and you should have gotten those other credentials, and you should have taken those other classes, and you're not ready. These voices come in and just take over. And this moment that was once filled with joy, just a few minutes later, you're now contracted, terrified, and you're afraid people are going to find out that you're an imposter. So that's an example of the upper limit problem. This is something that shows up in a lot of sessions with clients, you know, where you watch people expanding, growing, and then all of a sudden they bring themselves back down. And this is something that, for me, has shown up in so many areas of my life. And I've really changed the way that I work with it when it comes up for me and when it comes up with clients. And I want to share a little bit of that today, because I think that there's kind of some models around how to work with it that I feel like maybe aren't, well, they don't certainly work for me, and maybe you'll find the same. So I want to share a little bit about some ways to work with it, and I'll use a personal example. Last October, I moved to Bali to deepen with my partner. We had been dating for about a year and a half, a long-distance relationship. I left the United States, came to Bali for 4 months to check it out. And about 4 years ago, I went through a pretty hard divorce, and maybe about a decade prior to that divorce had been in some relationships that just were really challenging and a lot of heartbreak for a good 10 years there. So I think I'd spent the last few years, maybe last 4 years, just a little jaded about love. And here I was moving halfway around the world to check out things with my partner. So I get to Bali, and a few months into being here, of course I didn't know a pandemic was about to happen, a few months into being here, I started to experience the deepest, most sweet and profound love. And I feel teary talking about it. And it kind of just blew my mind. It opened my heart. It was extraordinary. And some part of me got terrified, like completely terrified. I think I just had a lot of relationship trauma all coming to the surface, and a lot of voices came in of don't open, don't trust this, you're going to get your heart broken again, you're going to be the fool. I noticed myself start to contract. I don't even think I noticed myself start to contract, but what I did notice was that I started to get allergies. Big, huge sinus response, allergies, sniffling, sneezing, out of nowhere, every day, almost all day long. And especially, interestingly enough, when he would come towards me, when he would feel very heart open and ready to cuddle, my allergies would start just rearing their head, and suddenly I'd have to push away from him and create a little distance. So that was the upper limit problem. And I started to become aware of it. Oh my gosh, I'm just upper limiting right now. I'm opening to love, I'm expanding, and I'm expanding out of my comfort zone. And traumas from the past, wounds from the past, and even just fears are starting to bubble up. And instead of opening and expanding with my partner, I'm bringing myself back down to a more manageable level and creating a little kind of buffer and distance via my allergy attacks. So after several months of these allergies, once I began to realize I was upper limiting, instead of what I've done in the past, which is, oh my gosh, I'm upper limiting, I'm just afraid, conquer your fear and recommit to what you want to open to, it's kind of like, you know what, that version doesn't 100% work for me. Because when I've done that in the past, trying to kind of plow through my fear and recommit to my expansion, I feel like I pendulate quite quickly back into those fears. They still take over. And so I'm really a huge fan of befriending my fear and really seeing it as an ally and taking it with me as I continue to expand. So the process that I went through, and it's kind of a 4-step process I'll share with you now, really supported me in moving through the allergies and continuing to open to love. And I'll just, disclaimer, still terrified of love, but more open and available to it. And the allergies have really simmered down, even though they are a little bit still here. But the first step is really to recognize that you are upper limiting. Oh, I'm upper limiting right now. Some part of me has gotten afraid, and I'm bringing myself back down to a safer level. Number 2, befriend your fear. And so just like I shared, just recognizing, oh, some part of me is afraid right now. Instead of making yourself wrong for that, beating yourself up for it, just acknowledging it with compassion. And just asking your fear, is there anything you want to share with me right now? Is there anything you most want to say? And when I did that, I just heard this voice say, I'm just afraid right now. I'm afraid to get hurt again. I'm afraid to be the idiot. I'm afraid to, feel abandoned. It's just these really, really kind of tender fears in there that were surfacing. The third step, to me, feels like it's really important to, after you've had compassion, felt some compassion for your fear, to again clarify and recommit to your expansion. Yes, I hear you, fear, and I recommit to opening my heart. I recommit to the abundance that's coming in, or I recommit to taking this job and taking this next step. So whatever it is, you recommit to it. And then the 4th step for me is really about taking that fear with you. So you're not trying to conquer it, bypass it, bulldoze it. You're saying, hey, dear friend, we're going to go on this journey as best we can, and I'd love to bring you with me. And so something that I found to be really useful is to say to my fear, okay, I am going to continue to expand in this way. I really want to continue to expand it this way. And as I do, what can I do to most support you? What can I do to most support you? And when I did this in relationship to what was going on with my allergies and deepening with my partner, I just heard this voice say, slow down, slow down. And that's really essentially what the allergies were doing. They were forcing me to slow down, but I would have rather done it consciously. And so that really became my practice. Yes, I'm going to continue to open to this love, but instead of just diving into it like I've done in the past, just slow it all down a little bit. And my allergies started to simmer down as well. So this is just a little bit of a practice for working with upper limits. And I hope it is useful for you. It's certainly been useful for me, and it's been really fun to get to explore it with clients, this whole idea that upper limiting isn't wrong. It doesn't mean that you've messed up. It really just means that you're human, that fears come up. And what can we do to take our fear with us? Anyway, I hope this is of support and sending you lots of love. Bye-bye.